You've came to watch me make fake croissants. You heard that right, fake croissants. We're not doing real croissants here. That's a pain in the ass, even though some people like a little bit of pain in the ass. I'm gonna teach you how to make a pastry that you can fool all your friends with lowered IQs. Now, I could have made this video in time for the holidays or in time for Valentine's Day or something like that, but I didn't because I care about you. And I care about you so much that I got a tripod for my phone. I'm just kidding. But it's been a minute since I've made a video. I act like I have 100 videos on my channel, but this is going to be interesting. I've done this a lot, this specific recipe multiple times, which I will put the recipe in the description if you want to follow along. But this is super simple to make. You can do this within a day. You don't have to take 2 or 3 days to make proper traditional croissants like you normally would. So I'm gonna bring you over here for a close-up, and we're gonna go over our ingredients, and we're gonna start making our dough. All right, let's take a closer look at all of our ingredients. We have 6 ingredients here. I have about 410 grams of all-purpose flour. Don't use any cake flour or pastry flour or bread flour, just stick to all-purpose flour. I got 2 packages of yeast, instant yeast. I have a 1.5 cups of whole milk. Do not use skim milk or part milk, just stick with whole milk, you'll get more flavor that way. Since I have some motion, I have Kerrygold butter here, which I do recommend using a higher quality butter. You'll get a better flavor and better result, but because these are fake croissants and we don't have to worry about France coming to get us, we can use a normal stick of butter as well. I have a tablespoon of sugar and a tablespoon of salt. Both of those are there to keep our health habits low. So I'm going to show you how to put this dough together. A lot of people are afraid of doughs, but you don't have to be. It's very easy to put together. This is a pretty forgiving dough as well. But first we have to heat up our milk. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, to heat up our milk, we're gonna use the absolute state-of-the-art kitchen equipment called the microwave. So simply open your microwave. Excuse the poor placement of the camera there. Don't ever say I did anything for you. And I'm gonna put it in here for about a minute. Now the goal is to get the milk, what in the world? Cancel. The goal is to get the milk to be warm, bordering that hot temperature. We don't want the milk to be scalding hot because it can kill our yeast. We don't want it to be cool because our yeast won't activate. So we want it to be somewhere in the middle, that sweet spot, to get that yeast going. So I'm gonna put it in for a minute, I'm gonna take it out of 30 seconds, give it a little feel with my finger, and see what it's like. Okay, so I ended up putting in the milk in the microwave for about 50 seconds total. The temperature was just right around there. Your microwave may vary. Again, remember, you want that warm, borderline hot type of temperature. You don't want it to be scalding hot and you don't want it to be cool. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're going to grab our bowl of flour and we're going to dump our 2 packets of yeast in there. I'm sure 2 packets of yeast is probably overkill, but we like overkill over here, and we're just going to get a better result. They're gonna be softer. Then after that, I'm gonna go ahead and pour in my milk. Now, before you start typing in the comments, you don't always have to bloom yeast. In fact, I never bloom yeast. I'm just like that. If you have instant yeast, you're probably fine just putting it in there. If you're using things like non-active yeast or fresh yeast rather, then you have to bloom it, of course. In goes our sugar and our salt, and then our butter that is softened. Just like that. Now, with all of our ingredients mixed in, I'm gonna take my 2 fingers like this. I'm not throwing up a gang sign, I promise. And I'm just gonna start mixing that dough together and getting it all into one sort of amalgamation. All right, make sure you're getting the bottom of the bowl. There's always some flour that's stuck at the bottom of the bowl, so we're just trying to incorporate everything. Try to avoid using your entire hand because for some reason everyone goes back to toddler mode and starts playing around with their dough like it's Play-Doh. Just use your 2 fingers. I promise you'll be okay. All right. You can see it's kind of coming together in this very soft, sort of rough dough, or as we like to call shaggy dough in the profession. Now, in this stage, as you can see, it's kind of coming together. I'm gonna go ahead and stop using my 2 fingers and kind of start using my whole hand here with a emphasis on my palm, right? I don't wanna, scorch the dough. So we're just gonna start getting that dough together. And we're just gonna start kind of kneading it. Now when you're kneading it, you wanna use your palms. Right now I'm struggling because my fingers are stuck. Here we go. A lot of people like to do their kneading on the countertop, which is fine, but I prefer to do it in a bowl because it's less mess and I'm not trying to impress anyone here, am I? So, just like that. Keep kneading it. The more you knead dough, the more gluten is gonna form. You're gonna get a stronger dough. It may feel soft at first, but it's gonna be nice. Soft here. All right, there we go. We have made our dough. Now, what we have to do with this dough is let it rest for at least an hour, okay? Typically when you're making croissants, you have to put your dough in the fridge overnight and proof it, but we're gonna do this for at least an hour. We're gonna let that yeast rise, and then we're gonna go ahead and roll out our croissants. So I'll catch you in an hour, and you can pretend like you are using your time wisely. Now, because I'm an excellent teacher, I absolutely forgot to tell you to cover the dough with plastic and let it proof in somewhere that's kind of warm. Don't put it in the fridge. Don't put it in somewhere that's cool. You want that heat to help your dough rise, obviously. The tighter, the better it is on your bowl. I also forgot to mention that if you keep kneading this dough, it'll get to a point where it becomes really hard, and you want to avoid that. So just knead it until it becomes this sort of general dough, okay? It doesn't have to be the most smoothest, most elastic dough you've ever seen, okay? So, yeah. All right, so it's been an hour, and here's how my dough looks. It's far bigger than it was. It's a good sign. If your dough didn't rise within that hour, you can either let it rest for another hour and see if there's any change, and if there's no change after that, then you probably kill your yeast and you have to start over, unfortunately. But now comes the fun part, because all the technical stuff is gone, so now we get to have some fun. So, things you're gonna need: rolling pin, pizza cutter, a bench scraper, a brush, some extra flour, and you're also gonna want a bit of melted butter. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is get our dough out. Now, whenever you are working dough on a surface, you need to flour your surface. And I like to grab about that much flour. Don't just slam it in the middle of your surface. You gotta give it some zest and kind of like sprinkle it all around. Make sure it's nice and evenly spread out. If you just kind of dump it in the middle, it's not going to do anything. Here's our dough. We can deflate it now and drop it right onto our surface. I'm going to take a little bit more flour, kind of throw it over the top there. And now I'm just going to knead this for a couple of minutes just to get a nicer, more uniform shape. I'm using my palm. I'm just kind of bringing it in, bringing it forward. Very simple. Okay, just like that. Try to get your dough into as nice of a shape as you can. This is what we call a boule. So I'm gonna just dust the surface a little bit more again. More. Now, one thing I don't recommend doing is working the entire piece of dough. You're gonna get a huge sheet of dough, so I like to cut it in half. Other side. Just gonna reshape this again real fast. Okay, now one thing you'll notice is my dough is pretty soft. That means there is a lot more hydration in there, meaning it's more flexible. So if your dough is really dry, you're probably gonna have a hard time in rolling this out. So now let's roll this out, okay? First things first is I like to grab my rolling pin and just kind of tap the dough like this, going back and forth very lightly. Don't be a barbarian. Just like that. And I twist it 90 degrees every time. Just to kind of flatten it out, get the air out. All right, so now I'm gonna start rolling out my dough, and my goal is to get a square or something very similar to a square. I like to start out my rolling pin right in the center. I like to push forward twice using medium pressure, go back into the center, push backwards twice. Then I rotate 90 degrees and I repeat that process over and over again. And that'll slowly start to stretch my dough out. Again, I'm not using too much pressure. I want to avoid, just scrunching this dough into the counter. Just like that. Also, keep in mind that your surface should be floured and your dough should be gliding across the surface. It shouldn't be sticking to it, okay? So, keep rolling. You can see I'm already starting to get a slight rectangular shape. I'm gonna stop right there. As you can see, my dough is about that thick. So it's thin, but it's not too thin. I like to grab the corners and kind of flap them like this. Kind of give it an extra stretch there. See, I kind of have a general rectangular shape going on here. Get a little bit of an extra roll. If your dough isn't listening to you and it's constantly stretching back into its normal shape, then you might want to give it a minute or two to rest on your counter and then come back to it. Okay, I have a little rip in my dough here. That is fine, that happens sometimes. That area of the dough is just a bit too thin. So now, with my pizza cutter, I'm going to cut off the edges, like so. So I get a nice straight rectangle, right? And you can ball up the spare dough and use it later again, of course. Now I have this nice rectangular shape. Just like that. So now we're gonna create triangles and we're gonna cut them with our pizza cutter, and that's gonna allow us to roll it into a croissant. So I'm gonna start off on this top left corner here. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm just gonna cut at a diagonal to get a triangle shape. And then at the bottom here where my cut ended, I'm gonna start there again and go up and keep zigzagging my way down and creating a bunch of triangle shapes, like so. I'm gonna throw this guy out because it's a little too thin. But here we have our general shape right here. These nice triangular pieces. So, as you can see, that was pretty simple, pretty easy, and pretty quick. And you can keep doing this with your scrap dough, and you can make quite a bit of these. So, I'm going to melt some butter, and then I'm gonna show you how to roll these guys up. All right, so I preheated my oven to 425 degrees. I have a sheet tray with some parchment paper set up. I have my melted butter here and my little brush. So now I'm gonna show you how to roll these guys up. So first things first, you grab your triangle piece like so. We're gonna grab some butter here and brush the inside with butter, like so. And we're gonna roll from the back. So we're just gonna lift this up gently, and we're just gonna make a little fold, and we're just gonna start rolling. You don't wanna roll this too tight, and you don't wanna roll it too loose. And just go straight. Don't stretch the dough, don't smash it, don't do anything, just go straight. As you can see, we have a nice croissant shape here, and then you're just gonna lightly pick it up. Make sure that the end is at the bottom and put it right on your sheet tray. Like so. This way, when the dough rises, that little end is not gonna come up and unravel. It's gonna be sitting on the bottom there. So now you repeat this process over and over again until you have as many croissants as you want made. So I'm gonna show you one more time how to do this, because I know you're sitting at home confused. Just one more time. Butter, brush. Now, as tempting as it is to completely saturate this thing in butter, don't. Just do a nice layer of butter. Pick up that end, fold it in, and go from that fold and just use your index and your thumb to just lightly roll straight. Boom, just like that. Little simple croissant shape. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and roll out the rest of my croissants, and then I will come back to you when it's time to bake. All right, so I got my croissants rolled out, and you're probably wondering why they're so inconsistent in sizing. I did that on purpose to show you the kind of range you can get in terms of sizes. You can get something like this, which is pretty average size, and then you have this one that's a little bit longer and thicker. You have really small ones you can make if you want to do like finger-sized ones, a little bit bigger than that. Depending on how big you cut your triangle is how big the size of the croissant is going to be. You can make longer ones. You're going to get longer ones, of course. You can make fatter ones. You're going to get thicker ones. It really all depends on the application that you want. I personally prefer this size. I think it's the perfect size. Once it rises in the oven, it's a nice handable size, if that's a word, and it's pretty easy to eat as well. So oven is at 425, and I gotta say, when you're putting these in the oven, don't sling it in there like you're from New Jersey or some shit. Put it in there gently, but also don't go slow. A lot of people, they open their ovens, they prance around the kitchen, they ballet or something like that, and all the temperature of the oven plummets, and you don't have enough heat in there. So make sure you put them in, close your oven right away. I do recommend proofing these for about 10 or so minutes just to get the dough to rise again. But we're about to throw these in the oven, and I'm gonna grab the rest of our melted butter, and I am going to brush it lightly over the top, right? So grab some butter, and just like so, go over the top. Don't Wolverine your croissants, right? You're gonna puncture them and you're gonna deflate them. So just gently cover them with butter like so. This is the part where you can kind of drench them in butter, but be careful because butter will burn in your oven if it's absolutely swimming in there, right? So now at this point, you're probably wondering, well, how is this different from a real croissant? And the answer is simply the process in which you make real croissants requires you to make a dough, which is essentially the same as this dough that we made. And then you make something called a barrage, which is basically a kind of a thin, large sheet of butter that you then fold within the dough. You do a series of folds and stretches and whatnot, and after that you cut out the croissants just like we did, and you put them to bake. Of course, it's a lot more technical than that, and it takes a little bit to master making an actual croissant, but this is so easy to do. This only took me about 2 hours to make. Well, in reality, it would take me about 2 hours to make. It took me longer because I'm filming at the same time, but you can get this dough mixed up, ready to go in about 10-15 minutes, proof for an hour, another 20 minutes to roll out your dough, and then it's gonna bake in the oven for about 10 minutes at 425. So I'm gonna throw these in the oven and then I'll get back to you with the final results. All right, guys, check it out. I just took these out of the oven. And here's a pro tip for you. Don't ever buy a Samsung oven. Mine is so fucky. I had to turn down my oven to 325 because it was going way hotter than 425, which is why this side kind of got golden brown and this side didn't. So yeah, fuck Samsung, but these are right out of the oven. And as soon as they come out the oven, I like to bring back that butter, baste them over the top with that butter. I never said these were going to be healthy. And you could also see how the size has changed after they come out the oven. Top it with butter. And I also, because I'm a fat ass, I like to have this rock salt. This is Portuguese Flor de Sal, very coarse salt. And I just kind of bam, 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 for a little bit of extra flavor. You can eat these hot. They're very good when they're hot. I would let them cool down for about 5 to 10 minutes before you do eat them. But yeah, that is it. Well, there you have it, guys. Fake croissants. I have one here. I took the ugliest one just to kind of show you the inside of it. This is still pretty hot, but you can unravel them. You got that nice soft inside texture. Very buttery, of course. Slightly sweet, salty. Now all that's left to do is sit there, watch everyone enjoy your croissants, and you can think to yourself, what a bunch of suckers. Everyone is stupid except me. Enjoy.